I'd like to call this meeting to order, please, and ask Mr. Longfellow to sing our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. Car ton bras se porte l'épée, il se porte la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel. We appreciate it. Again,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
As always. This is a regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole, 12-17, scheduled for Monday, May 8th at 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, are there any addendum or delegation items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's one addendum item this evening. That's the addition of item 26, that being correspondence from the Canadian Corps requesting a temporary license exemption for a special event.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Doucette. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? I wish to confirm that I have a conflict with items number 3, 6, and 16. Number 3, I'm a member of the congregation of the church. 6 and 16, I'm a member of the MPCA. And I will be giving up the chair when those items are being discussed. I'd entertain a motion for adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole, 11-17, held on April 24th, 2017. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move on to determination of items requiring separate discussion. Mr. Maine?
Number 10, number 15.
And 15. Madam Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Items 3 and 16 for the conflict.
And 6.
Or sorry, 3, 6, and 16 for the conflict.
Thank you. Madam Kenny.
Item 5.
Just item 5. To my left. We're good. I call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, second by Councillor Maine. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. There are no presentations this evening. We do have delegations. I just remind the person attending as delegates, you have 10 minutes to provide your provide your spiel, provide your information. Our first delegation tonight is Dan Tonello. He's Vice President of the Community Living, Port Colborne, and Vicki Moreland, who's Executive Director of the Community Living. Push the red light there. Good, thank you.
There we go. Mayor Maloney, members of City Council, and citizens of Port Colborne. For the past 55 years, Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet has provided a full range of personalized supports and services to people with an intellectual disability and their families. Our services include adult residential, employment, and community support programs, as well as a range of children and youth activities. Our organization continues to advocate for and develop services that will enable people with developmental disabilities and their families to live fulfilled lives. We currently provide support services to more than 222 adults, children, and their families, and we're a proud employer of 150 valued employees. Now, Dan's going to take a few minutes to talk about the importance of living in a community where everyone belongs.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Mayor Maloney, members of Port Colborne City Council, and fellow citizens of Port Colborne, my name is Dan Tonello. I am the second vice president of the board of directors of Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet. May is Community Living Month throughout the province of Ontario. During this time each year, we are urged to reflect, contemplate, and recall the variety of ways that people with intellectual disabilities make valuable contributions in our community. It is a time to raise public awareness and to provide education to the community. Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet has a clear and distinct vision of what genuine and authentic community living is all about. It consists of all people, of all abilities, being included and fully participating in all facets of community life. The vision of Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet is a community where everyone belongs. Our mission is to empower and support people with developmental disabilities to achieve their desired quality of life in partnership with the broader community. A community where people with disabilities are not only tolerated, but accepted and embraced for who they are. The board of directors, employees, and volunteers strive to be ambassadors that practice and promote the following values: social inclusion, providing opportunities for people to live, work, and play in our community. Rights and responsibilities, providing advocacy for and on behalf of people. Dignity and respect. All people are equal and need to be treated as such. Individuality. Accept and respect individual choices and opinions of people. Independence. Provide opportunities for learning and allow people to live the lives they choose. People with intellectual disabilities are people first and foremost. Persons labeled as having a disability must not be defined or limited by the labels that society utilizes to define them. We can promote the inherent equality of all persons. We can speak up, support, and assist persons with a developmental disability to speak and stand up for themselves. We can teach our children to accentuate the abilities and strengths of people and to work together towards the goal of inclusion. By the manner in which we live our lives, we can provide positive examples of what it means to be engaged and productive citizens. Why not extend to a person with an intellectual disability an invitation to accompany us for a walk, a bike ride, or to church? We can ask them to go to a movie or to a restaurant with us, or invite them to our home for a barbecue. People with intellectual or developmental disabilities are people first. They possess the same fundamental rights and liberties as all Canadian citizens, such as the right to live, work, and play in their community. They need to be supported to make their own decisions and to determine the direction of their lives. We believe that the whole community is enriched when people with disabilities have opportunities to participate alongside their non-disabled neighbors. When we work together in solidarity, we can build a solid foundation by creating the vision of acceptance for everyone, from an ideal into a reality. Until every person lives in dignity, none of us can live in peace. In conclusion, I would like to formally extend an invitation to Mayor Maloney, the members of Port Colborne City Council, and the citizens of Port Colborne to attend our flag raising ceremony recognizing Community Living Month on Friday, May 12, 2017 at 10 a.m. Proceeding the flag raising, the members of the group People Helping People Achieve will sponsor a cleanup of the portion of the Welland Canal Parkway Trail from the Mellenby Avenue Bridge to Seaway Park. A barbecue will follow at Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet, 100 McCrae Avenue. Thank you for listening and for your time.
Thank you, Dan. Kent. Thank you, Vicky. Are there any questions of any member of council? Just a question. How many individuals are on your caseload?
Right now we have about 220.
And basically, how are you funded?
Most of our funding is the Ministry of Community and Social Services, so the Ontario government. There's user fees that we have that we charge as well. With group homes, they get ODSP, people do, so they use that for some of our residential programs. But for the most part, it's funded through the ministry.
And as a group, do you have any wants or needs from this community?
Always. Port Colborne, City of Port Colborne and the council have always been very supportive of our organization, and we've always really appreciated that. We've been so lucky over the years to receive the discretionary grants that used to be the Hydro, through the Hydro Foundation, so I think it's more of a discretionary grant now. We are not funded at all for any of our children and youth programs. Everything has to come through grants for that or for user fees, and in most cases families just can't afford too much in the way of user fees. So we are very fortunate to receive a number of grants, either through Port Colborne Community, Niagara Community Foundation, and some of the other Niagara regional ones, the Prosperity Initiative, I believe it's called. So that's the only way that we run our children's programs. And then up right until now, everything has been integrated because we open it up to the community as well for those programs.
Thank you. All that being said, I think I'll quit there.
Okay.
Is there any questions arising out of my question? Thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance here tonight.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Our next delegation is Christine Carmichael. She's the Director of Corporate and Customer Services. Greg Behara, Manager of the Regulatory, and John Sanders, Manager of Customer Engagement, Canadian Niagara Power, regarding our CNIB distribution. Welcome.
Thank you.
Christine, I just to interject, we're having different difficulties with our PowerPoint presentation, so I would
I'll try to use it, and if not, I'll just talk.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Maloney, members of City Council, guests, and citizens of Port Colborne. I'm Christine Carmichael. I'm the Director of Corporate and Customer Services at Canadian Niagara Power. I'm here with my two colleagues, Greg Behara, the Manager of Regulatory, and John Sander, the Manager of Customer Engagement. And we're here to tell you about Canadian Niagara Power's rate application. In early 2016, Canadian Niagara Power filed a cost of service rate application with the Ontario Energy Board. And there were multiple phases to the application process. And just recently, our rates were approved effective May 1st, 2017, retroactive back to January 1st, 2017. And that's going to be funded through a rate rider, which I'll explain a little later. But just to give you some background, every 5 years, CMPI rebases its distribution rates through a full cost of service rate application. So that's what we had to do, and it's through an application process and a hearing through the Ontario Energy Board. So our next rebasing is until 2022. In the non-rebasing years, so from now until 2022, distribution rates are increased by inflation, less a productivity and a stretch factor. So for example, in 2016, our rates increased 1.65%. And when I say rates, I'm talking just about the distribution rates, and we'll get into that a little bit later. In 2015, the adjustment factor was 1.15%, just to give you some context. So when I say Canadian Niagara Power put forth a rate application, it's not just Port Colborne. Canadian Niagara Power is comprised of Fort Erie, Port Colborne, and Eastern Ontario Power, which is in Gananoque. So there's about 24,000 customers between Fort Erie and Port Colborne, and 36 customers in Gananoque, so 3,600 customers in Gananoque. So it's about 27,600 customers. So when I talk about our rate application, it is for this entire service territory. I want to talk to you a little bit about our process and listening to our customers leading up to our rate application. Every year we do an annual customer telephone survey. Our results last year were 85% satisfaction rating, which is good, but I'll be honest, it was down from the year before. Now, we did our survey in October. In October, there was a lot of discussion about hydro and the rates, and we don't change when we do our survey. We did our survey in October, and it did go down 6%, I believe, but that was down less than the province, because our survey provider does a provincial survey as well, so we did better than the rest of the province. So we were happy for that, knowing that we want to continually improve that. We had customer focus groups. We asked our customers to come in and talk to us before we filed our rate application to get their feedback on what projects we were doing and what they thought of it. So we incorporated that into our rate application. We certainly are involved with our community. We have a dinner that we're hosting at Port Cares actually next month, I believe, in June. We're very involved with United Way as well. We have a call center available to talk to customers, a very knowledgeable call center whenever they have questions. And we are using social media quite a bit. You can follow us on Twitter at CMP Power or like us on Facebook. But all of our social media goes right to our website as well. So customers that don't have social media can look at our website, and all the information we're putting out would be on our website as well. So that's just a little bit of information on how we listen to our customers. And I wanted to share with you how we have to perform for our regulator. Our regulator being the Ontario Energy Board. Every year there's a scorecard that's published, and there's a number of different criteria, and I apologize, I know that's hard to see, but there's different criteria on it: service quality, customer satisfaction, billing accuracy, safety, reliability, cost controls, and we publish that. That's on our website and on the Ontario Energy Board's website for any customers, anybody to see how we're performing and how we're performing year over year. So that's something that we publish and report on and ensure that we're meeting, the benchmarks that are set out for us. So before we get into this particular rate application, I just wanted to explain what makes up our electricity bill. When I talk about Canadian Niagara Power putting in a distribution rate application, what that talks to is 18% of the bill, 18 to 20% of the bill. So when you look at the pie chart, it's the light green one at the top. The rest of the bill are pass-throughs. So there are charges that we pass through. There's HST. There's the cost of power, which has been the bulk of, a big percentage, which is 58% of this bill. There's also transmission charges, and there's regulatory charges. So when we're talking about when we're putting forth a rate application, we're putting forth a rate application for 18 to 20% of the bill. So I just wanted to put that in context. So what we wanted to share with you is the impact of this rate application and what it's going to have on an average residential customer. So we use an average customer using 750 kilowatt hours a month. So I have to look closer now. The base distribution charges are going to go up on average $2.03 a month. But there are also rate riders and transmission charges that are going down. So the delivery component of your bill, customers will see an increase of approximately 58 cents a month. That being said, and I'm sure you're aware of the Fair Hydro plan that has been announced, overall, customers using 750 kilowatt hours a month are going to see a decrease of approximately $11.24 a month, and that would be effective May 1st. That's because the cost of power is going down. The government announced that the time of use prices are going down effective May 1st. As well, regulatory charges are dropping because the Ontario Electricity Support Rider is no longer funded through rates. It's going to be funded through tax base, so therefore there's a decrease as well. So on average, a customer is going to see a decrease of $11.24 a month. And primarily that is a result of the Fair Hydro plan. If you add that to the 8% decrease that came into effect January 1st for the rebate, customers will be seeing a decrease of about $20 a month from pre-January. So, and I did want to point out, when I talked about the fact that the rates were retroactive, there's a rate rider of $1.23 for 8 months. Thanks, Don. Just to the next slide. Right here. So there, of the $3.87 in the post-May category there, $1.23 of that is the foregone revenue that given that our rates were retroactive to January 1st, and that will fall off the bill at the end of December. What I can't predict is what some of the other rate riders will do, but that will come off the bills as well. So we did the same scenario for general service customers less than 50 kilowatts. So, you know, the smaller businesses that use on average about 2,000 kilowatt hours a month. Overall, their distribution charges are going to increase $4.56 a month. Again, there's decreases to the rate riders and the transmission charges. So we're looking at delivery charges increasing by $2.13. But there will be the offsets on the regulatory and the time of use. So those customers will be looking at seeing a decrease of approximately $29 a month. And if you add that to the 8% rebate that started in January, we'd be looking at almost about a reduction of about $60 a month. So again, the rate rider of $10.01, you see in the second line item there, post May 1st, $5.08 of that is the foregone revenue rate rider that I was speaking to. So just to give you some context as to what these distribution charges pay for, they pay for the capital and the ONMA expenditures of Canadian Niagara Power. So you can see they track fairly consistently. There's one purple line back in 2013, that's the smart meters, but overall in 2017, we're looking at approving approximately $10 million in capital and $10 million in ONMA. So just to give you some details on what these charges are, our capital investments are our long-term assets. There are poles, wires, substations, transformers, and our OM&A are things like maintenance to our assets, like tree trimming, customer service, other departments within the company. So if we look at the broader CMPI, so the entire company, about $10 million a year in OM&A. So some of the highlights in our application, what are some of the programs that we're funding, are the pole testing program, the Emerald Ash Borer program, which I'm sure you're all aware of, and then mist meters. Customers that use greater than 50 kilowatts but less than 250,000 kilowatt hours, we had to put in new meters for those customers, which we're working on getting those completed, or they are completed. 140 of them were installed between Port Colborne and Fort Erie. And then we also have capital. So that's the other component of what makes up our distribution charges. And capital is our high priority must-do projects, our new subdivisions, things to improve automation. Some details specifically to our capital projects in Port Colborne are a new distribution substation is in this rate application. So it'll be on the south side of Port Colborne. It's going to replace two older substations. We've got other distribution system upgrades of $2.24 million. Of course, there's new subdivisions, so those are funded. We also have within the broader application $750,000 in distribution automation capital budgeted in the 5-year plan. So that'll improve response times and restoration times under outages. So that's what comprises our rate application, and that's how we try to maintain our safe and reliable distribution system at affordable prices for our customers. In addition, I just wanted to tell you about our upcoming events. So we
When we were talking to customers in October, in Port Colborne specifically, they mentioned that they wanted the opportunity to be able to talk to Canadian Niagara Power face-to-face. So we implemented this program called Your Kilowatt Hour. So now it's 6 times a year. We go to Port Cares. They let us use an office there. And customers can make an appointment and have an opportunity to talk to us face-to-face. And we also have an energy efficiency advisor there as well to talk to them about ways that they could decrease their consumption. And it's been very successful. So our next date is June 23rd. We're going to be at Port Cares. As well, we'll be giving out our free retractable clotheslines at that event. That's through our energy efficiency department. We had one event at Port Cares already on our Your Kilowatt Hour Day. We gave out 300 of them. We'll be back there actually on June 2nd. That's not with a Your Kilowatt Hour, but we'll be back there on June 2nd and then again on the 23rd of June. So if you are a residential customer and the account is in your name, if it's not in your name, call. If it's in your spouse's name, get your name on the account and you can get your free retractable clothesline. And that's all I had. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Members of council have a question. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Christine. Christine, you mentioned the Emerald Ash Borer program. Mm-hmm. And what I'd like to know with that, as you're taking these trees down yes. and getting rid of them, what are you replacing them? Are you replacing them with trees? Are you putting trees back for the ones you take down?
No.
No, this would be working in conjunction with the remove trees along our rights of way that are a hazard to our power lines. But generally, if they're close to the power line and a hazard to the power line, we would not be.
We wouldn't put them in the same spot.
But you put another tree up? Any place? Any place?
No.
I'm just saying, can that be part of your program, though? Because I always look at it from the perspective when one comes down, you should try to at least replace that one. So I just wondered if that was part of the program.
That currently isn't part of our program.
Okay.
But I appreciate that
Thanks.
feedback.
Thank you. That's it.
Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions through you to Christine. First of all, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I've talked to you a number of times on the phone, and you've always been helpful, so thank you for that. One of my questions is, are smart meters really smart?
Well, I think smart meters are smarter than mechanical meters because they can tell us when we're using our power. So the smart meters are able to track exactly when we use our consumer electricity. And they give us the opportunity then to make behavioral changes so that if we wanted to shift from on-peak, where the cost of power is more expensive, to off-peak, we could make that decision. Before, we wouldn't have known. Every month we would say we use so many 750 kilowatt hours, but we don't know when we're consuming it. So I think the smart meters make us more informed as consumers, and therefore we can make better decisions about our consumption.
Thank you. My next question through you, Mr. Mayor. In Ward 4, the area that Councillor Bodder and I represent, there have been a number of power outages, particularly last fall in certain areas. And so I'm wondering if the capital works that are planned are going to address that issue, as well as when we kind of like the whole city got knocked out. Are those capital works going to address those issues?
Well, I'll talk to when the whole city was knocked out, because that wasn't actually a Canadian Niagara Power problem. Unfortunately, that was related to the incoming supply. So I'm not sure, and maybe Greg can help me answer this question, but I don't think, other than, working with Hydro One, is there, our capital budget wouldn't necessarily affect that. As far as the outages in the fall, I know we came and we met with Mayor Maloney and Mr. Louis to discuss that, and we have implemented some technology to help with the automatic reclosures, so that when there are outages, we've reduced the number of the length of the lines. So we've been able to improve our reliability in that respect. And I think that the outages have been less. I mean, we did deal with some wind in the fall, and that does happen. And we do have a tree trimming program, and it is by zone, so that we can maintain clearance from the lines and try to mitigate that as well. And I don't know, Greg, is there anything else we can add to that?
I guess one thing I'll add is the $750,000 over 5 years for automation and reliability. That would tend to target what we call a worst performing meters. So every year we take a look at all the areas in the Niagara Power system, and we evaluate based on the number of customers and the number of outages on those meters. which ones are overall worst performing. It's not a set 5-year plan as areas need more investment or investment.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Danch.
I've got my question through you, Mr. Mayor. You were talking about the trimming of the trees and going by zones. I've got an individual on Highway 58 in Port Colborne area. He's been after me quite a couple times there anyways, and he's asking how the trees are going through the lines. He's all concerned if the branch comes down, it's going to take out the hydro. Like, Highway 58, is this zone is coming up, or like, what can I maybe say to this guy, or should he go and see you on June the 23rd?
Yeah, that would be a great opportunity for him to make an appointment to call us and talk to us about it. We can get some more information from him. Then we can go back to our operations folks and find out, what the plan is for that area, or is it something that we need to address, off cycle. So I think that would be a great opportunity for him to make an appointment and speak to one of us about it. I would recommend that.
Fine, thank you.
Councilor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for your presentation. And I would like to ask you again about outages, much like Councillor Butters did, but I'm talking about east side of the canal in the urban area. We have several interruptions, power interruptions. They're not really full-blown outages. They're just enough to kick off the clocks or, just shut down your computer, that sort of thing, where you have to just start everything up again. They're just short little interruptions. And I constantly see people complaining about this on social media, wondering what causes those and is there a plan to take care of them?
Well, those would be momentary outages, and we do track momentary outages as well. We track frequency, duration, and momentary outages. So they are on our radar. We look to see which areas have more momentary outages, but there could be a number of different reasons what caused a momentary outage, so it goes off long enough for your clocks to go off. It could be a branch makes contact, our lines detect a fault, the branch moves off the contact, and when it tries to reclose, it's able to because the fault is no longer on the line. It could be animal contact. It could just be high winds and the wires hitting each other and then moving apart. So that our system is designed to, if it does detect a fault, so say a tree hits the line, the power will go out for a moment. But if the fault is no longer there, then the power will be successfully restored. If the tree stayed on the line, the power would stay out for longer. So certainly that when Greg mentioned that we have $750,000 to look at, upgrading different areas, that would be factored in as well, where there's more momentary outages, because that could be an area that shows up as having, more frequent outages.
Any other questions of any member of council? There being none, thank you, Christine.
Thank you very much.
I wonder if you might leave your notes for our records, or we could. You have a copy?
I wrote on these, but I can send you them.
Okay, we have a copy of your presentation.
You have it. Pardon? No, Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. Our next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. My report this week deals basically with some of the youth in our community as it relates to Skills Canada competitions. Last week, several students from Port Colborne High School and Lakeshore Catholic High School attended the Skills Canada Ontario competition after successfully competing at a local level. Our community schools are training our students in trades that will help to keep them in our city with viable employment opportunities with our local businesses. Aiden Hawkins, a grade 9 student at Port Colborne High School, together with Cameron LaSalle, a grade 12 student, competed in the GIS team of number 2 category. They earned a gold medal. This was Aiden's first time competing and Cameron's second gold medal in GIS. Aiden is the son of one of our employees as well. Their skill has not yet been carried on to the Canada Skills Competition. This is a fabulous achievement for these young men. Jane Inouye from Lakeshore Catholic High School walked away with a bronze medal in baking out of 22 competitors. This was Jane's second year of competing locally, but her first trip to the Ontario Skills Competition. Joel Snyder, a grade 11 student from Port Colborne High School, competed in the welding division and brought home a gold medal out of a field of 23 competitors. Jacob Broughton from Lakeshore Catholic High School won a gold medal in the heating systems technician category. Joel and Jacob will now carry on to the Canada Skills Competition with competitors from across the nation. I would like to thank the administrative and teaching staff for guiding and nurturing these students and their families for their supporting efforts. They will certainly be our leaders of tomorrow. Regional Councillor Barrick is not with us tonight, so there will not be a report. Next item is councilors' items. Are there any items that councilors wish to bring up from previous meetings or otherwise? Nothing to my right. To my left, Councillor Bodner and Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, might be Mr. Hanson. A while ago, we received a letter from Forests Ontario. And this talks about the 50 million tree program. And just to pick up on what Councillor Kenny was talking about the tree replacement, we have how many trees coming down on our trail from Port to Fort Erie? 2,700 ash trees, right? Okay, so this talks about the program offers significant financial and practical assistance for planting trees on properties with more than 2.5 acres of open land. The program covers a significant portion of the total planting cost. The 50 million tree program is an excellent opportunity to not only minimize costs and effort for tree planting, but enhance the value and functioning of the property and create a living legacy that will benefit entire communities. I would suspect that we have 2.5 acres on either side of the trail, be it linear and not in one square. I just wonder whether we could take advantage of this. And my second part of this is, do we have some link on our website to this? Because people often want to plant trees, and this is an opportunity to, like they say, to get it to really minimize the cost of that. So can we take advantage of something like this on the trail to replace some of those?
Councillor Hanson.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bodner, we'd be happy to look into this program with Forest Ontario. In addition to the 2,700 trees we have along the trail, we estimate there's more than 10,000 as we go through Ward 4, through all the road allowances and wood lots that are impacting hydro lines and the city's infrastructure as well. So it's certainly something worthwhile to look into, and we'll follow up with that and perhaps report back to council once we get some information on it.
Thank you.
So just about getting a link on the city's website to this too, I think it'd be, somebody may want to take advantage of this and have that amount of property, so it'd be a simple way to put them in touch. And one more, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff and whoever is, this is kind of a general question, but we've seen some pretty significant rainfall in the last while, and it seems that the storms and have been getting more intense, and I don't think that's going to go away. I think we're going to see that on a regular basis. How are we as a city coping with these storms, and are we looking to the future when we do something, like maybe the ditches or the drainage has been okay, but as we get these, large amounts of rain, how are we handling this, or are we looking ahead to when we build something to say this might have to be beefed up a little bit?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bodner, I guess I can start. I'm sure some of the other staff might have some input on this. I think in the last 10 years, with council's support, we can see the benefits of the municipal drain program. Number one, cleaning the drains and providing the outlets to the roadside ditches in Ward 4 especially. And we saw through this last week of rainfall that we were in pretty good shape, relatively good shape compared to some other areas that were experiencing severe flooding. Our complaints on flooding were very minimal from what I've seen. And in going out and reviewing the rural area, especially during the last week, we saw that everything was running at capacity. The ponds were full. All the municipal drains were running at full capacity as well as the ditches. But in saying that, everything was working. Other than some surface flooding in some farm fields and so on, the system was working fairly well. So I think continue on with that program would be number one priority in terms of the municipal drains. I know Mr. Benamir is working very hard on several active drains at the present time. and that will continue the program. Beyond that, there are always programs in place in terms of trying to assist homeowners with information, and perhaps Chief Cartwright or perhaps the CO would like to speak to that in terms of what we do to try to get the message out to the property owners in Port Colborne with flooding issues.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Mr. Louis.
Sure. It's through your worship to Councillor Bodner, and I'll let the fire chief follow up on the safety message as it pertains to flooding and storms. But I want to follow up on the director's comments. Specifically, I can't speak to engineering and our engineered solutions, but what I can tell you is that two things. Number one, the city's trying to be much more proactive in our communication to our residents, and that means reaching out to people through Facebook, Twitter, and other social media means, because it's a quicker way of getting a message out than a newspaper article or an advertisement or even a council meeting and the other word we get out. The second component is sort of the way of the future. More and more of our world is becoming paved over, which means water, finding the path of least resistance, has to go somewhere, and it's creating more and more flooding. We saw a few years ago the flooding in Burlington on the 407, where the water was held back from draining anywhere. And one of the things that has been before council before and is going to come back before council is some kind of a stormwater charge that's going to help us to build the infrastructure that's going to offset flooding in the future. And we do intend to have the public meeting that council requested. It's just a matter of a few false starts at the staff level of getting all the information together, but it's something that cities and towns all over Ontario are implementing as we react to the fact that there's just not as much permeable ground in urban areas as there used to be. Parking lots and increased construction are taking away the places that water traditionally went. So that's our two-pronged sort of approach, is engineering in the future and communication to our residents. I'm not sure if you can speak to safety, Chief.
Through your worship, thank you, Mr. Louis. Over the course of the last week or so, the CAO and myself have had a couple of discussions with regards to messaging out to the community. We provided that information to the community. We have an ongoing program where we circulate information through the libraries, through the front of the City Hall, and various other locations in the city with regards to preparing 72 hours. I will tell you that over this last week and a half, I hate to say this out loud because I'm sure it'll come back to haunt me tonight, we had 0 calls for flooded basements in our city. 2 weeks prior to that, we had one elderly lady that we had to assist. We do have equipment. We've gone out and purchased equipment over the last number of years with regards to assisting people, extra sump pumps, other submersible type pumps in the event we'd need them. We were very fortunate this last week or so that we didn't have any of those needs.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments on that issue? There being none, Mr. Doucette.
I was just going to raise my hand, sir, because the comment I have to make has to do with the water that we had last week. I'd like to, through you to Ron Hansen. Ron, can you tell the guys that helped out on the stewards at one point? They were excellent. The stewards appreciated their thoughtfulness and asking them certain questions. I think they need to be commended. They were on duty pretty well through most of the weekend to make sure that there wasn't any further flooding. They were lucky nothing got into the house, but we had a situation at one point where it was close to the house, and city acted very quickly and pumped out the areas and dried them out and did an excellent job, and they were very appreciative of what was done and how it's being done, and what will be done in the future to rectify the situation. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you, Mr. Doucette. Are there any other questions or comments? There being none, are there any staff responses to previous inquiries? Yes, Chief.
Your Worship, thanks very much. I've got 3 things tonight. The first one is I'm glad to report that as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, the Lions Club of the city donated $1,000 towards our fire safety program in the city. It was very welcomed, and that money will be handed over to the treasurer tomorrow to be put into our account. The second thing is tomorrow starts our door-to-door program in the rural area. I believe a large number of the rural residents should have received notification through mail that we're going to be coming door to door. We're going to be using half of our volunteer force every training night to go out into the rural area and canvass door to door with regards to smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms in their homes and make sure they're installed properly and safely and replace them if necessary. The third thing is recruit training. As you're aware, we've had 9 recruits training over the last number of months. Their final testing will take place in June, and everything's moving ahead quite good. At that point, we should have approximately 40 members in our volunteer force.
Thank you for the report. Any questions? Hello, Chief. There being none, we'll move on to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. At this time, the first item is number 3, where I declare a conflict. And Councillor Butters, can you take the chair for the discussion?
Sure. I can do it from here, is fine?
Fine.
That's okay? Okay, thank you. Councillor Desmarais, I believe that you lifted number 3?
I did.
So do you want to get it on the floor?
Okay, thank you. Planning and Development Bylaw Enforcement Division, report number 2017-67, subject encroachment request 123 King Street.
Thank you, Councillor Desmarais. Can I have a seconder to that? Councillor Bodnar, any discussion on that item? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. And the chair goes back to the mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. Next is item number 5. That is Mrs. Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That Ed Learn be awarded the purchase of a 2017 Ford F-150 pickup truck through the 2017 Police Co-op Purchasing Group Program in the amount of $33,230 plus taxes, license, and OMVIC, which is a $10 license.
Any discussion? Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Desmarais. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the chief. This is a 2005 Dodge Ram that looks like it's used by the entire department, according to this. So I'm asking, I guess, the question, that seems a lot to me, just for me, a lot of mileage on that 2005 Dodge Ram for things like it says it's going to be used, this one, and I guess I would ask you, the things listed on our report that the 2005 Dodge Ram was deployment of personnel, transportation equipment, hauling the trailer, fire prevention activities, all those things listed in our report, are all those going to be used then, this van, I mean this truck, going to be used for that purpose?
Chief?
Your Worship, if I could, the process that we used within the department up until this particular vehicle has been brought forward to council was that the vehicle that went into that role was usually used by myself and or a fire prevention officer or deputy chief, who he now is, on an ongoing basis. We're projecting that this particular vehicle is probably going to get even more use than what the 2005, but it won't be for my use. It'll be used by the department with regards to utility purposes. And if I can, I'll just take a moment. That list is substantial, but there's even more so. If I could just take a second to go through this list, it's going to be part of our door-to-door program, which is going to start, as I just said, shortly. The emergency response, it'll be used for going to fires, medical calls, things of that nature, transporting equipment to and from fires. It'll be hauling a trailer, which council passed for me to be purchased by the fire department this year, which that trailer is going to be set up to haul our decon equipment, our hazmat equipment, and also as a mobile command post, we can haul a trailer and set it up for long-term fires and or fire investigations. It's going to be used for fire prevention activities. From time to time when we have 3 people working, the captain will take the truck and go out and assist the fire prevention officer in another location that he's working in, while the 2 firefighters do work around the station. It'll also be used on an ongoing basis for public education work, both to haul a trailer, which will have the public education tents and so on in it, It'll also be used by our people that go out and assist, that being the volunteers, when we go door to door or we go to school programs and senior citizens. It'll also be used on Tuesday nights for training activities on a regular basis. Medical calls, when we go to pick up a firefighter at a hospital, that vehicle usually goes and picks those firefighters up at the hospital rather than taking a bigger truck to Welland in this particular case. It also will be used in our industrial training program. Council, I think, is aware of the fact, as it was part of our core services, we provide training activities for industry in the community, and we'll be using it to haul the equipment that we use, our fire extinguisher training and so on, to the industries to be able to do it rather than the back of a fire truck. It'll also be used to transport firefighters to fire scenes and or to mutual aid calls. Usually when we get a tanker call, they're looking for added personnel, so we transport those in a pickup truck versus a larger truck, which we want to keep in the city. It's an alternate vehicle. When the smaller vehicles are out being serviced or broken down, we would use that, whether it be the fire prevention officer, the deputy chief, or myself from time to time. Usually doesn't happen that often, but once in a while. Picking up supplies, i.e. going to Niagara Lake to pick up medical supplies, bulk materials such as foam and sorbents, rather than shipping it and paying the shipping costs. We send the pickup truck, pick it up, and bring it back to the city. And also used picking up station supplies, which we pick up, which is going to change somewhat because it's moving from King Street, where we pick up most of our supplies, to next door. So it's going to be used on a regular basis by volunteers and full-time to do a multitude of things within the city.
Further questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you're kind of telling me that it's not going to get a 12-year life like this one did.
Your Worship, we try to maintain our vehicles very carefully, and we take care of them as best we can. I'm going to suggest to you that we would expect this vehicle would last at least 12 years out of it. I'm hoping through maintenance and taking care of it as best we can.
Okay. Thank you. And just one more comment through you, Your Worship, to the Chief. Thank you for accessing this program where we got a best, bang for our buck. We saved about looks like about $19,000 by going through that program. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for investigating and bringing that forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Demery? Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Chief. Chief, the 300,000, I know there was a little bit of talk about it this week, the 300,000 kilometers on the 205. I think people have to realize that that was also personal miles, was it not? I mean, you didn't get 300,000 kilometers out of 12 years just running around the city.
Your Worship, no, that's correct. As I indicated, that vehicle was used by myself for personal purposes. That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councillor Danch.
I'm not sure if I go to, through you, of course, through Peter or the Chief there, this PCPG program, is that something that's just been a one-shot deal that's just recently come up?
If I can, Your Worship, I wasn't aware of it until earlier this year. The Lincoln fire chief spoke to me about it. They've accessed it when they bought a truck last year. It wasn't necessarily available to fire. It had always been available to the police, but they've opened it up to all emergency vehicles. The catch-all is that it must be clearly marked and it must have lighting unit on it to be recognized as an emergency vehicle. There's other departments that are using. I just found out as of today that Niagara Falls is also accessing it for their vehicles, for their small vehicles.
Mr. Sinest, do you have any comment on that?
And just one more question. So, I mean, we're going to buy a truck for $33,000, and I love buying new vehicles because then you can go to the candy store and get all the extra stuff. So we're going to put a cap on it. We're going to put mud flaps on it. We're going to put a line of bed in it. Like, what extra costs? I mean, obviously we have some lighting we're going to do. What extra costs do you think we're going to spend on this truck?
Chief?
Your Worship, the vehicle, that price that you're seeing is all inclusive. It includes a box, a sprayed box, undercoating. It includes a heavy-duty alternator. It includes a step into the box with the handle. It includes the new V6 that with the turbocharger on it versus a V8, and it also includes the new 10-speed transmission they have. The only extra I see going on that truck at this particular time will be the lighting package. That should be in the area, the prices that I received right now is approximately $2,500 to $3,000. Our intent is to use as much of the lighting that we currently have on the Dodge, and the radio system that's on the Dodge will be transferred into the new vehicle.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dancho. Any other questions? There being none, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next is item number 6. There's a conflict with myself, Councillor Butters. Would you undertake that?
Certainly, Mr.
Discussion?
Mayor. If item number 6, Councillor Desmarais lifted that, so would you put that on the table, please?
Thank you very much. Community and Corporate Services, Clerk's Division, report number 2017-73, subject, request to amend the terms of reference for the Environmental Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Desmarais. Can I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Buchanan, is there any discussion? Councillor Doucette?
Just a question. The NPCA has been on the Environmental Committee for a while, but they couldn't vote. This is to create a voting. Have they been approached in any way to realize that this is what's going to happen? Or I'm just curious. I must have missed the meeting, that meeting. And if anyone has the answer to that, I'd appreciate it. It's great to do this, but if they aren't aware of that and they are going to be surprised by the request, then I think we need to make sure that we approach them first before doing that. I don't know.
I'd ask Clerk Greg to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report was generated as a result of correspondence directly from the NPCA that was then referred to the Environmental Advisory Committee. And
that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Grigg. Councillor Bodner?
Just as a point of clarification, I think Councillor Doucette said they're going to be a voting member. I believe they were a voting member. Now they're going to become a non-voting member.
No,
just in case.
They weren't a voting member.
It's the other way around.
Can that be clarified by staff?
Ms. Grigg?
Thank you. Councillor Bodner is correct. In the past, there has been a representative from the NPCA on the committee. However, they have subsequently asked for it to be just a resource to the committee and not exercise a vote.
Is that sufficient, Councillor Bodner? Any more discussion or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. Move on to item number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just correspondence for information, but I think it needs some discussion. Correspondence dated April 16th, 2017, received from Bonnie Dayball in regards to request for reconsideration to allow local equestrians to utilize the Friendship Trail in conjunction with foot and bicycle traffic.
Discussion. Madam Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a member of the Active Transportation Committee, I would like to let everyone know that this matter has been brought to the committee, and it will be dealt with in the future when a subcommittee dealing with trails and uses is established, but that hasn't happened yet. So I'm glad to see that it's going to staff for a report, because I think this matter should be dealt with earlier rather than later. So I'm glad to see that. Horses are problematic in that it makes it very difficult to have cycling on trails where horses aren't necessarily picked up after. So I'm hoping staff will take all of that into consideration.
Councillor Butters, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our staff, several years ago, in the town of Fort Erie, there was a master plan equestrian trail thing put together a long time ago, and it might be of some value to kind of get that out if you have access to it, to brush it off and see if it's not appropriate for the Friendship Trail. There may be other options within that master plan, because it basically linked Fort Erie, Stevensville, parts of Port Colborne as well. in this huge big plan, and I don't think that it was really acted on in any big way, but it might be of some use in terms of us going forward if we ever had the opportunity to include horses somewhere. Thank you.
Mr. Hanson, do you have any comment on this item?
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor. We would probably work with corporate services and community services to, if it's council's direction that they need a report to come forward, we'd work together with our parks and trails foreman to bring some recommendations forward on this.
Thank you. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to Councillor Butter's remarks, equestrians are allowed on the Fort Erie section of the Friendship Trail right to Holloway Bay Road, and then it stops to allow for Port Colborne. But Port Colborne does have a trail that's dedicated to equestrian use, and that is along the east side of the canal, north of Main Street there. The multi-use trail has a portion that is just for equestrians. So, and the Greater Niagara Circle route has made that very clear to the equestrians, so that they know that that's in there. So there is some accommodation. It certainly could be better, but there certainly is there is a trail that they can use, and they will get a good experience there.
Councillor Bonder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, when you're doing your report, one of the requests is because they have a horse show at our park, Centennial Park at Cedar Bay, they're looking to not trailer their horses there and to actually, ride safely to get to that park. For them, the trail is a natural because it comes out of the Shirkson area and that. But I agree with Angie that we've had a number of complaints over the years about horses on that trail from people who, it's not a wide trail. And so there is problems that way. But if staff could look at any possible alternatives to, to get the horses to Centennial, and just in general, the trail, there are a lot of horses in Ward 4. It's an industry. It really is. There's a lot of people that have, that are making a living or at least supplementing their income by either boarding horses, training horses. It's a big deal. But how do they, share the road or, I know we looked at, when we initially did the trail, we looked at how could we incorporate them beside the trail. The ditches make it problematic. It just isn't enough room. I know I brought it forward. It didn't go anyplace, but, can we buy land on the other side, a strip of land from, rural, the farmers or people have a rural, rural property. And I don't know if that's even feasible because there may be hindrances there. You can't have a trail that stops someplace, you want it to go right through. So if staff has the opportunity to look at something, or maybe Councillor Butters brought up that there was work done in Fort Erie, maybe we did some work on that and we could resurrect it and just see where we're at. Has anything changed? But I think it's a worthwhile endeavor just to see if we can get them further down the road on some form of trail. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's actually your suggestion that if a trail comes to an end suddenly, what's the point? The problem they have is that Fort Erie has a riding trail, comes to Port Colborne, it stops. Similarly, they have a riding trail in Wainfleet, and it comes to the Port Colborne boundaries, and it stops. There's no link between the two. So someone suggesting that this matter perhaps be deferred until Mr. Hanson can prepare a report on this, or members of staff. Is that your desire? Recommendation is staff. Okay. In fact, that's what we're asking for, is a staff report. So, call the question. All those in favor of a staff report on this issue? Those opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Next item again is, I believe, number 15.
This is a concern of mine. I think it should be open to have a little bit of discussion on, because we received this for information, but I think we should really look at it and voice some opinion here, because it seems to be two tracks that we're following. The town of Fort Erie, Niagara South Hospital, goes to the 150.
Number 15.
I think it's 153.
Yeah.
I can't see. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Okay, Mr. Meaton, you have it?
Yes. I'm going to read this whole thing. I mean, just bear with me, because people on COGECO might want to hear this too. In regards to the Niagara South Hospital, please be advised that the Municipal Council of the Town of Fort Erie at a meeting on April the 10th, 2015, passed the following resolution in response to a notice of motion brought forward. Whereas the proposed new hospital in Niagara South will be built at the junction of Lions Creek Road and Queen E. And whereas the Niagara Health System is still awaiting final approval from the Ministry of Health. And whereas upon the final approval, the new hospital will be built with a target date of 2023 and may be within the projected 8 years from the time when the property was dedicated. And whereas the municipality of Fort Erie currently does not have a hospital within its municipal boundary, and our residents and the residents of Niagara need access to medical care that only a hospital may provide. And whereas the municipality of Fort Erie has experienced a high growth, and whereas the municipality of Fort Erie along the Niagara South is anticipating greater growth with the possible addition of tourism, manufacturing, and housing growth. Whereas it is proposed that the new Niagara South Hospital will be a center of excellence for stroke, complex care, geriatrics, I'm going to be all these things, wellness and aging, it's a big one for me, surgical services, inpatient services, dialysis, ambulatory clinics, and so on. The Honorable Charles Sousa, Ministry of Finance, the Honorable Erica Hoskins, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. Whereas it is imperative that the Minister of Finance, Charles Sousa, and the Minister of Health, Dr. Eric Hoskins, and the President of the Niagara Health System, Suzanne Johnson, understand that a new state-of-the-art medical facility will be available to facilitate not only the current needs of the communities, but the anticipated future needs. And whereas waiting another 6 years would have a negative impact to those people living and the more than 14 million annual visitors to Niagara South who rely on and may need proper medical care. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Council of the Town of Fort Erie recognizes its responsibility of representing the constituents of the Town of Fort Erie as a steward for access to greater medical care and facilities. That the Council of the Town of Fort Erie recognize the importance and expediting the build of the new and expediting the build of the new Niagara South Hospital. That the Council of the Town of Fort Erie hereby expresses the need to move up timelines for the construction of this hospital. That a copy of the resolution be forwarded to the Minister of Finance, Charles Sousa, the Minister of Health, Dr. Eric Hoskins, and the President of Niagara Health System, Suzanne Johnson, the Office of the Premier, Kathleen Wynne, and the Niagara Regional and Local Municipalities of Niagara. Now, the reason I pulled this was...
John, before we go further, we need a seconder for your recommendation. Councilor Demery? Go ahead, John.
Okay. The reason I pulled this, and it does make sense, if we're going down that road, and I know there's a few people in our community that think that we're not going down that road, that our hospital can be saved and Welland can be saved. But the part that struck me with this motion that Fort Erie might put out was 6 years is too long to wait. And 8 years definitely is really too far to wait. So that might put pressure on the province to do something quicker as far as putting a new hospital up, which probably won't come till the next election for obvious reasons. But to do something in our own community, like the $3.5 million upgrade for our urgent care center that never quite got here. I mean, the sign fell down before the money got here. So I'd just like to have it open up the discussion, see what everybody else thinks before we vote on this.
Thank you. Other speakers? Your recommendation, Councillor Kenny?
Your Worship, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest if we are voting on this, as I am still an employee of the NHS.
Thank you. Any other comment or discussion? Councillor Doucette, Councillor Bodner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just the only comment I have is that this is great, but the other part of the plan, the urgent care areas that they're supposed to create, that they're supposed to build, where are those plans? If we're going to support this, we also need to make sure that we support those urgent care facilities that they are supposed to build as well. And I have a concern with recognizing this without those two urgent cares that are supposed to be built. One of them being in the Welland area, I believe, and the other one being somewhere in the south here. And I'm hoping it's around Port Colborne, but there was supposed to be two other urgent cares that were supposed to be developed. Brand new facilities. Why are we not discussing that as well? And that should be part of this motion, after all I'm concerned.
Mr. Bodner, then Ms. Demery.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor. I have no trouble supporting this. I think it's, I'm for better health care. I don't really care where it is. For constituents in Ward 4, it will be a lot quicker to go to this hospital where it's located than to try to get to Welland. But saying that, a new hospital is really important. I don't really care where it is. I care that people I represent can get there on a timely basis. And, I don't know that muddying the waters with bringing in the urgent care centers, this is simply about getting that hospital going sooner rather than later. If we want to bring a motion later on to discuss where the other ones go, that's fine. But, I have no trouble supporting this motion from Fort Erie. Thank you.
Madam Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little bit confused here because I didn't hear anybody wanting to amend the motion, and the motion is simply to receive this for information, so I'm not understanding where we're going with this. So we're just receiving the information. Nobody's mentioned supporting it. So I would just say that we should just vote on receiving it for information.
Mr. Butters, and then Mr. Main for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fine with receiving it for information. I have my own objections to this particular thing. First of all, my geography tells me it is not a Niagara South hospital. So right then and there, I have an issue with that. You want to call it like it is? It is not a Niagara South hospital. So I'm fine to receive and file it, and for now, and that would be good with me.
Mr. Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no problems receiving it and filing it. It was just the thing that caught me was, and we do need a hospital, and we do need it quicker than the 6 years or 8 years, whatever they project. But my point is, we also need this urgent care center in this town as well. We were promised this. I mean, all the politicians took their pictures. They were all posted on the big sign, and the sign's been removed, and nothing's happened there. So I can give and take. I don't mind this. I'm supporting this for information. Fine, let's get on with it. Let's build this. But I just don't want everybody to forget that we also need some care here.
Any more questions from any councilman? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? I'm sorry, I didn't see the, can I do the vote again, please? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? We have Councillor Kenny not voting. Come on. Carried. Item number 16, another conflict by myself. Councillor Butters, could you undertake number 16 for me?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Item number 16, and Councillor Demery, you're going to get that on the table for us.
I will, thank you. Township of Wainfleet, RE, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, third-party audit and appointment of board members.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder to that motion, please? Councillor Main. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
I believe that's the end of the items requiring separate discussion. Would you agree, Madam Clerk? She would. Excellent. Are there any notices of motion this evening? There be none, I'd call for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Dance, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Carried. Meeting is adjourned. We'll move on to the next meeting. This is the regular meeting of council, 13-17, on Monday, May 8th, following the committee of the whole. I'm calling that meeting to order. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
I'd entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Demery. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? And I would comment on items 3, 6, and 16 as a disclosure of interest by myself. Are there any other disclosures of interest? There being none, move on for a motion to adopt the minutes. The regular meeting of councils 10-17 held on April 24th. Councillor Kenny, you have a pensive look on your face. Okay, Councillor Butters, were you moving for adoption of those minutes?
Hi, sure. Yes, I can, I think. Okay.
I'm not sure whether you were here or not. Is that your concern? It's okay, says our clerk. We're good. All those seconders here for the adoption of minutes, moved by Councillor Demery. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. We have a conflict on 3, 6, and 16.
I have one more, want to pull.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I was, I don't know what I was doing when we were having our committee meeting, but I forgot to pull number 4 for discussion, and I'd like to have a recorded vote on number 4. So I'd like to pull that for just a comment and then a recorded vote.
Okay, could we do with item 3 first, so that Ms. Butters chairing the
Perfect,
meeting?
thank you.
Certainly. Would it be okay to do 3, 6, and 16 collectively,
Yes.
Madam Clerk? Okay, so let's, can I have a mover for those 3, 6, and 16? Thank you, Councillor Demery. Seconder, Councillor Buchanan. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Those 3 are carried.
That's item number 4, Councillor Kenny, is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That engineering and operations report number 2017-74 with respect to city playground update be received for information and that no further action be taken at this time.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconder for the recommendation. Councillor Butters. Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. if we move on to page 73, I'm not asking for this particular playground. It can go on the list of playgrounds as we have a list when we do playground upgrades, playground equipment. On page 73, it says staff believe. Don't say staff know, they say staff believe that a decision was made to revert Oxford Park to a passive area and not replace the existing equipment. Now, there's only one other playground in that Hawthorne Heights area, and I was talking to the parks foreman, and he says that they might even think of taking the swings off the one that is in the Hawthorne Heights. The Hawthorne Heights is a full, it says Hawthorne has a full complement playground as well as a basketball court. The equipment there hasn't been replaced. Was replaced in 2008, so we're talking about 9 years ago. And now this other one, where you remember me reading the letters for my two little constituents asking that we consider at least putting a slide back in Oxford Park. Now, I know Councillor Bodner was concerned that I was going to ask that be done immediately, and I'm not asking that it be done immediately. What I'm asking is that this little park be put back on the list of our list of playgrounds, and that's all I'm asking, Your Worship. I forgot to bring it up at committee for discussion, but I'm bringing it up now for discussion, and I'd like a recorded vote on that. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilor Bodner.
When it comes back for, or getting on the list, that means it'll be replaced as a playground, right? So it'll be, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't find the info here, but isn't it 70,000 plus for $73,000 now to 75 for a full-blown, well, now I say, yeah, for a full-blown playground. So I guess I would have some trouble putting a full playground in here in an area that, you know, staff feels it's underutilized, and there is one a block away. So just my thoughts on it. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Madam Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Butters.
Through you to Mr. Hanson. Ron, do we have like a formula that we use, or some way of some decision-making process that tells us where we need parks, how big the park should be, and how many homes they should serve?
Through Mr. Mayor, Councilor Demery, I've suggested in the report that we upgrade or do a Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which I don't have access to now. In talking to our parks foreman, who's very conversant with new trends and how playgrounds are being built in other areas, he's talking about a destination type playground as opposed to a large number of these localized playgrounds. So some of the thinking has changed as the population becomes more mobile. So you can see from the schedule we have for replacements, there's 17 current playgrounds, which are a combination of local playgrounds in different parts of the community, as well as larger ones like the one at H.H. Noel, which was, I believe, $150,000 when it was rebuilt. So it's a larger scale one. So I think, you know, to help council in making this type of decision, perhaps moving away and maybe even shortening this list to a certain degree and maybe enhancing the service that are there now, it may be in order for discussion at the next strategic planning or budget meeting to talk about a Parks and Recreation master plan upgrade that would really address this issue and give council a little more guidance on how to do this. Otherwise, we continue on with this sort of this 17-year rotation, which may outlive its usefulness in terms of cost. If you look at the cost, we're at 73 now, 75 next year, and so on. So it won't be long to over $100,000 per playground, and it may get to the point that council feels it's not economically feasible to continue this expanded list of playgrounds. So that would be our recommendation.
Well, thank you. I've made it a point since we watched the community gardens go into Lockview Park, and I saw that really large park not being used at all. I've started to drive around the various parts of the city, and the little ones are like little ghost towns. No one's going to them. They're going to the larger parks where everything can be found in one place. So, yeah, I did wonder about whether we really do need to have that long of a list. So thank you.
Mr. Bain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Hanson. Now, I'm looking at this picture, there, and they seem to be about a block apart. Is there any access from the Hawthorne Heights area over to the Jacob Barrack area, like a right-of-way, or do people have to go through somebody's property if they wanted, say, they wanted to go back and forth? Is there a right-of-way there?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Main, no. The access from Hawthorne would be on Hawthorne Boulevard, Barrack Road, and then the access is actually off Hillcrest, Barrack Road and Hillcrest into Jacob Barrack Park.
Yeah, because like Ron said, they're a block apart, but really, truly, they're more than a block apart if you don't have public access going across.
The block apart is Hawthorne. Hawthorne is only a block from Oxford. We're talking about Oxford.
Yeah.
So Hawthorne is only a block away from the current Oxford.
Okay.
Passive
All right, great.
Park.
Great. So one other question, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Hanson. Do we try to do one a year, Ron, or is it one every 2 years?
Yes, if I refer you to the third page in the report, there's pretty much one per year, except when we did the fairly large park at H.H. Knoll, there was a 2-year gap. Beyond that, you can see there's a replacement. This year, in 2017, we have Rose Szymanski Park slated for an upgrade, and then the year after that, Sunset Park. So the cycle continues. As we say at the bottom here, the structures are good for 15 to 17 years, so with 17 parks in, playgrounds in, this creates sort of a 1-year cycle for the playground replacements. When they've reached their expected lifetime, it's pretty well time to go in and put a new playground set in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Honorable Matters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So is Oxford Park, would it be, in terms of size, is it kind of a fair bit smaller than Hawthorne or Jacob and Barrack?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butters. If you're referring to the acreage of the park, it can still be a passive park. It's still fairly good size. It's usage. It's at the current time, Oxford, there's not as many homes around Oxford, so it's more centralized to be around. As Jacob Barrack's a good example where you have 2 full subdivisions surrounding that particular park, and same with Hawthorne. We have quite a few homes right around there. I think the decision was made, and the reason I say I believe in the report, I had a reason for saying that. I looked at the documentation that was available going back to 2005, and there were instructions made to have a public meeting at the time with the residents in the area to look at it, and I believe the decision was made to have Oxford, rather than renew all the equipment there so close to Hawthorne, the decision was made to make it more of a passive park, and that seemed to be acceptable at the time when they reviewed it with the public.
Okay, and my other follow-up question to that is, in some of these areas, and I understand like the $70,000, and that number's only it will only go up over time. But in some of these places, is it possible to have like a smaller, you don't have to have the big $70,000 or $75,000 kind of playground? You could downscale it to something simple and less expensive to just accommodate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Butters, yes, that's exactly right. That sort of accommodation could be made depending on the usage of the area. You could enhance an area, say like H.H. Knoll, or pick some other one where there's been growth in the area, where you have more people in the area, and possibly just downsize a current playground with less because it has less usage. And maybe change the type of usage in a park to make it more passive for other uses other than hard playground equipment itself. Similar to what we did with the fitness equipment at Valet, which is a bit of a change in the way a park is set up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Then we'll call for the vote on item number 4. That's a recorded vote request.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In accordance with the procedural bylaw, I'll read the name of each member of council. Upon hearing your name, please indicate either yes or no to the motion on the floor. Council.
The report's in the negative, though, saying not to continue. It's in the negative. It's saying not to continue with this part.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if a member of council was in favor of not continuing, then you would support the motion. Councillor Bodnar?
Yes.
Councillor Butters?
Yes.
Councillor Danch?
Yes.
Councillor Desmarais?
Yes.
Councillor Doucette?
Yes.
Councillor Elliott is absent. Councillor Kenny?
No.
Councillor Main?
Yes.
Mayor Maloney?
Yes.
The motion carries. With one in opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've dealt with items number 3, 4, 6, and 16. We should also approve those other items not requiring separate discussion. Could I have a motion? Councillor Bodnar? Councillor Doucette? All those in favor? Opposed? You're in favor? Carried. Proclamations, Madam Clerk. Yes. We have 9A and B. I'd like to deal with them in bulk. Is there a mover and a seconder for those proclamations? Councillor Doucette carried it, moved it, opposed? No, opposed. Seconder? Councillor Bodnar? All those in favor? It's carried. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. If we can have a motion to approve those in bulk.
Also moves.
Councillor Kenny? The seconder? Councillor Danch? Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Consideration of bylaws in bulk. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 64693617 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer payment agreement for the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund. Bylaw 64703717 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an encroachment agreement respecting 123 King Street. Bylaw 64713817 being a bylaw to further amend the terms of reference for the Environmental Advisory Committee. Bylaw 64723917 being a bylaw to set and levy the rates of taxation for 2017. Bylaw 64734017 being a bylaw to establish fees for various planning and development services and applications, and to repeal bylaw 571814911. And finally, bylaw 64744117 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting of April 8, 2017.
Could I have a motion to pass those bylaws? Moved by Councillor Butters. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Desmarais. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? They're carried. Council would like to move into closed session. Could I have a motion that we do so, please? Moved by Councillor Desmarais, second by Councillor Butters, that we now move into closed session to discuss or to address the following matters. Chief Administrative Officer, Health Services Division Report 2/1776 regarding a contractual agreement pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001 and subsection 2392B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Is there a mover and a seconder for that motion? Councillor Desmarais. Second by Councillor Butters. Now, vote please. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Good evening, and thank you for being here, for members of the audience, and members of staff.